that they were carrying on. Additionally, you will see that there is even a letter here after they had decided they needed to shut Mr. Hunt up. They put him in jail, which is a regular operation on an ongoing basis. This is a letter from Bill Clinton after he became president, sort of writing to Lieutenant Colonel Hunt, who had been totally taken advantage of at this point, and kind of saying, gee, well, you know how it is in this, in the modern world here. It's kind of too bad that you're in jail, but I'll get back to you. And that was pretty much the extent of that communication. There are other documents that you will see here where Robert Hunt also is named, which will completely prove who he was for sure. There are internal memos from John Poindexter, Admiral Poindexter, of course, Oliver North himself, and George Bush, and back and forth during the Contra business, and talking about how, Robert Hunt of the Naval Intelligence was in fact who he says he is. So the information, when he comes forward, when Mr. Hunt comes forward and talks about Operation Watchtower and Operation Orwell, which was a back end of the Operation Watchtower, Watchtower being the little in actually utilizing our military forces. Again, it's your taxpayers' dollars. I'm glad you know that at least they're doing something with your money. They took taxpayers' bucks, military officers, soldiers, and equipment, and placed these towers in so that the drug planes could fly in from Colombia and land in Noriega's Panama for years by the tons, folks. We're not talking small envelopes of cocaine like Oliver North's secretary, Fawn Hall, was using. Now, Fawn Hall would use just small amounts, folks, not the tonnage anyhow. She admitted that she had done at least 40 times, so it's probably 3 times that, but 40 times utilized snorting cocaine while she was at the National Security Council, the highest, most secure positions in the entire world, the most sensitive positions in the world, the National Security Council and Administration for the United States of America. And Fawn Hall, the secretary of Oliver North, admitted to snorting, maybe 40 times during that period of time. And, of course, it's interesting to note that when the cocaine and crack is sent in, or the heroin is distributed into the black community or the Hispanic community, when they use these narcotics, they're referred to as just, disgusting dirtballs, or they're drug smugglers, or this or that, they're pushers, and they're low-level, low-life people. However, when Fawn Hall and the folks out of the White House would snort some coke, it's referred to as recreational narcotics. I always thought that was a nice term. This is being politically correct. Right. Yes, well, they absolutely make me sick, and I don't know where your head is at, but people that are into that stuff and propagating and bringing in more and more to kill our children and having our babies born addicted, etc., they ought to all be taken out and hung, all right? But nonetheless, they would refer to it, of course, as recreational drugs. Now, also, for example, when we talk about agents coming forward, we had a drug agent, a DEA agent, as you can see here, came forward quite a long time ago. This was back in '94. He came forward and said, hey, Oliver North was linked to drug operations. And, of course, they typically, again, with his situation, just kind of poo-pooed it as best they could and sidetrack the possibility of any connections. Now, I want to get back to Richard Armitage. This is a very upsetting situation. Richard Armitage was directly involved, according to the Coonsaw, the fellow that grows the poppies for the heroin, for example, directly named as being a major financially involved and or money laundering personality and a purchaser of the cocaine, or excuse me, of the heroin out of Burma. He was also directly involved with Trafficante. Now, this is what's rather upsetting. A little while back, General Colin Powell came out, did a big story, and said one of his most intimate, closest friends, a godfather of his children, is Richard Armitage. Now, I certainly don't know anything negative about General Powell other than the fact that he was the general that was signing off on many of the missiles that were illegally being shipped by Oliver North and his people. Some people are not aware of that, but his friends have to be looked at if, in fact, Richard Armitage is as close to him as an advisor, an ongoing advisor, to the guy that's probably going to end up at a very high level once again in the government with Bill Clinton. Now, additionally, I'm going to show you here at this point in time, this is actual transcripts of handwritten notes of Oliver North's. These were his own little notes, personal notes in a spiral notepad that he was making during telephone conversations, and he made these as little, I'm going to call them memory joggers for himself. One is, you will see here on June the 27th of 1984, talks about a drug case and then a DEA program on controlling cocaine. And then he says either cut off Colombians readjusting and possible negotiations to move a refining effort to Nicaragua. This is Oliver North talking about assisting in the movement of a drug refinery to Nicaragua. Unless they were refining something else. That's always possible. Except the very next line is Pablo Escobar, Colombian drug czar, and informant, the pilot, is an indicted criminal. Carlos Lader and Freddie Vaughn. Now, Frederick Vaughn is an ongoing drug smuggler that was involved on a regular basis with the CIA and the National Security. He comes up continually in Oliver North's paperwork. Now, here's another one here. If you look here, you'll see this. It says, call from Claridge, that was head of the CIA, a high-ranking CIA officer at that time. Then call Michael in reference to narco issue. And then he talks about the pilot went and talked to Vaughn. Again, this is the drug smuggler we were talking about. And that they wanted an aircraft to go to Bolivia to pick up paste. Now, this is not Elmer's glue, folks. This is cocaine raw paste that Oliver North is referencing. They needed an aircraft to pick up the paste. And then it says they want an aircraft to pick up 1,500 kilos. That's rather specific. I know, maybe it was just something else, right? Certainly. Then there's a reference to a leak on the drug case. All right? Now, what we're talking about there is the Barry Seal situation. Barry Seal was a major drug operator. And I'm going to let you watch this video which explains the Barry Seal situation. Barry Seal, by the way, had a hanger-on, a guy hanging around him in Arkansas all the time, kind of like a, like the hanger-on, that's the proper term. And his name was Roger Clinton. Well, Roger Clinton, brother, of course, of the president, is a major hanger-on with the biggest drug smuggler of cocaine in the history of America. Well, I know, that's just coincidental again. I'm going to let you watch this about the Barry Seal operation, and it also involves some of the money laundering out of Arkansas.
This is a story about Contras, drugs, guns, and the CIA. Money and political connections from the Reagan administration to the governor's mansion in Arkansas during the 1980s. In the 80s, a CIA secret operation involved guns, drugs, and money in western Arkansas, and was connected to friends of Bill Clinton and a state agency in central Arkansas. Clinton, who had the power to order an investigation at federal government expense, turned his head and looked the other way.
Cover-up?
Yes, no doubt in my mind.
Corruption involved?
No doubt in my mind.
At the highest levels of our government?
No doubt in my mind.
Former Internal Revenue Service investigator Bill Duncan investigated money laundering in western Arkansas in the 80s.
Well, how far will the United States government go to protect an operation? Will they kill a case? I think history has shown that that can happen.
Did it happen?